Today is a beautiful day in paradise. It's 92 degrees here in sunny Southern California. The humidity is 48%. What I thought I would do today is bring you into the real world of detailing. I'm going to be working on my neighbor's car. It is a Ford Flex. It has 181,000 miles on it. All indicators suggest that it has never been detailed before. Now, what came to my mind in preparation for shooting this video is this guy named Bob Ross. Maybe you've heard of him. He is what's called the happy painter. And I thought, hey Mark, you know what? I think I'm going to adopt his kind of mode of operation, which is he just loves to paint. He just loves to be happy painting and painting and painting and painting. It's all about the painting. And in my world, it really was all about the detailing. That's when I was often the most happiest. After I've dealt with a customer, after I've done that initial meet and greet, and now I just get to work by myself, listening to my music, doing what I love doing, which is detailing. And so rather than the cynical, sarcastic, well, you're probably still gonna get a little sarcasm today. So rather than that version of the Darren, and I'm not even going to go into detail as to why I'm so cynical or why I get so frustrated with this industry, and I take it out on you guys, and you can hear it, my tonality of my voice. So I'm going to kind of chill out, whoosha, whoosha, and be the happy detailer and just show you the process of detailing in what I would call very typical working environments for me here in Southern California. So for example, I'm working in direct sunlight. Now this really only comes with one benefit, and that is lighting. It will reveal every unwanted nuance in the form of dirt or damage to anything that I'm working on. So obviously if I'm working on the inside, you're not going to be exposed to the sunlight, but I thought, okay, let me really reveal the world in the moment. So you can see me as I work, and I'm going to explain and talk as I work, and this way you can see what I will call a transformation. Now this actually is not that dirty. I would call this, especially for the year and mileage of this car, I would call this below average dirt for a car that I suspect has never been detailed before, and I've come to that conclusion based on me examining the interior of this car. So this is what especially the driver's door, because this car ain't going anywhere unless there's a driver in the cockpit driving it, which means that everything here is going to be touched regardless of any passengers or what have you. So this is going to sustain way more dirt than the rest of the car as a rule. So what I'm trying to illustrate in this moment is that if you're a beginner or you're thinking about starting a detailing business and you're like, oh wow, if that's the kind of stuff I get to deal with, like sign me up. That's not that bad at all. I've seen way worse. It's like, well, trust me, I've seen way worse also. This ain't it, but it will be able to allow me to walk you through the process, talk you through the process, why I'm using certain tools and techniques and products, why I do it. And so come on along. With that said, let me introduce you to my bucket jockey. I introduced this to the world, I don't know, probably 15 years ago. Well, my channel's only like 12 years, so let's say 12 to 13 years. Point is I was using this before I had my YouTube channel, because it's all about organization. Why? Because that translates into efficiency. Why efficiency? Because that translates into profitability. For example, if I got to get from point A to point B, and there's many ways to do that, to close that gap. Point A is when I start, point B is delivering the car based on the customer expectations. So there's the gap in there. There's many ways to do it. Think of it like this, traveling. I can get from here to New York in different ways. I can fly there in an airplane, drive in a car, I could walk there, hike there, ride a bicycle there. So the process of getting from point A to point B is all about efficiency, as in, how do I want to arrive at the destination? Do I want to get there super quickly or super slowly because I want to enjoy and smell the flowers on the way there? Well, when it comes to detailing, if I've quoted the job, which I will have done if I'm getting the job, then I know that that is set. What's not set is how long it has to take me to deliver said results. So therefore, if I can deliver the results based on the customer's expectations in a shorter period of time, that means more money into my pocket at the end of the equation. That's why efficiency is so important, ergo organization. So this has the ability to contain all my scrub pads, my scrub brushes, detailing brushes in endless varieties, myriad detailing brushes, a bottle brush. This really is my interior detailing kit. And I love the inside because this allows me to slide my spray bottles in and out very easily. My oversized scrub brushes. This is where I keep my spray dressing stoner. I keep it wrapped up in my dedicated dressing cloth. So there's my organization, there's my kit. Now, something about working in the sun, direct sunlight, is that everything heats up to the temperature of the sun. Like I'm putting my hand on this right now and it's damn hot. If I left it here for probably 12 seconds, my hand would start to burn. I'm not gonna do that. I don't feel like having my hand burnt today. What that means to you is that your products will dry quicker than under normal working or other working conditions. And yes, I have my clean microfiber cloth. I always use microfiber because it's the safest, most absorbent, and lint-free cloth that you're gonna find. Does not get better than this. Now, when it comes to interior detailing, you don't have to overthink and buy a very expensive microfiber cloth. It's just not necessary. Now, my working rule is on this is I'm always gonna do an examination process first. I'm gonna start at the macro level and work down to the micro level. So this door panel is made up of different components. The grab handle here, the armrest here, the header up here, the door latch. So it's all these different components, different materials. We've got this faux, which is fake, type of, I don't know, carbon-esque looking, I don't even know what to call that, but it's just plastic. It's embellishment for aesthetic reasons. Then we've got a pretty heavily textured vinyl piece here. We've got a different type of vinyl that also has a heavy texture. The texture here is different than the texture here, which is different than the texture here, which is different than the non-texture here. This is mostly smooth. So you've got the speaker grill here. So there's all kinds of things that you're like, oh my gosh. So with that said, now that we're 10 minutes into it, let me come in here and scrutinize it with you so you can see. I'm going to show you some of the dirty stuff. So for example, look in there, and I'll use arrows when I'm editing this, and I'm looking right above that area. It's all dusty. And then you got around the door lock mechanism. You got inside the crevices here. There's not excessive buildup from the arm resting on the header or even down here. The speaker grill doesn't even look that bad. There is some chunks kind of buried into the holes. So it's really about, once again, starting at the macro. You break it down, you assess, you go in based on your strategy, you check your results, and work from there. So as a rule, because of gravity, I work from top working down. Also as a rule, I want to remove any of the dry debris first before I insert a liquid cleaner into the equation. Oh yeah, by the way, something you'll see, I don't know if I talked about it, but you will see me begin to sweat profusely because that is the nature of the beast. Now, to be very candid with you, as a professional, when I'm out working, I normally don't keep all my clothes on because I'm out in the sun and this shirt will literally get completely saturated and it's just so uncomfortable. So I'll just take it off. Not very professional, but when you have enough experience, you can get away with breaking a certain amount of rules. But you'll see, and I'm just highlighting this so you can start to, it's you being here in the moment the best you can, knowing that you actually can't be here in the moment. How about that? So I'm calling things out to highlight them in case you're not picking up what I'm inadvertently putting down. So back to the dry material. So I'll take now let me explain something. In this bucket, I have 3 of these types of brushes. 2 of them are for dry work only. 1 of them is reserved for wet work. Now, to explain the difference, Wet refers to anytime I want to use a brush with a chemical, a liquid chemical. Now this brush in particular has a nylon or a plastic handle. These are boar's hair bristles, which are natural. So this kind of represents the winning combination when it comes to doing stuff wet like this in the fine areas if I need to. So these brushes remain dry. So back to the regularly scheduled program, which is I'm going to kick off any dry debris first very quickly, which there really is not much on this. Now, for example, if I detect there's some problem areas like in the speaker grill, I'm going to see if I can break this loose with a detail brush before I get it wet. Because if it is some food chunks and I get it wet, then it's going to clean, but chances are if I can break it loose while it's dry, it's actually going to clean quicker, because that is Darren being more efficient. And as I'm working and I'm talking, I can see that it's breaking it loose. I'm not inserting any liquid into this moment. Not that I'm overly concerned, because most people, like for example, let's say I came in hot with this and I shot a big old spray of juice in there. Someone out there in viewer land is gonna be like, oh, what a hack. That guy just probably wrecked the cone of the speaker behind there, which I would disagree with, because like when I was growing up 100,000 years ago, speaker cones were actually made out of paper and they could be destroyed with liquids. That's not really the case anymore. And by the way, I'm not going to do that anyways. And it doesn't mean I'm not going to spray liquid on there if I need it, but I'm not going to be stupid about it because I'm the adult and I can control things like that. So right there, I just finessed all that. And trust me, there is not a shortage of brushes, and this is where you will learn. For example, I've got this stiff brush I reserve for like floor mats, whatever. I could take this because these bristles are even stiffer, and often we like stiffer, right? In life as guys, right? And I can see this has a little bit of liquid on it. Actually, it's stressing, which is part of the problem. You can often commingle your stuff, not in a good way. So this is also where the organization comes in, is it keeps things segregated in a good way. But no worry on that, because at the very end, I'm going to show you one of my little tricks. Point of this brush is those bristles are stiffer. And here I am really finessing this whilst it's dry. So I didn't see any other like booby traps or warning signs. This little rubber gasket, what this does is it really seals the ventilation system. Because this is rubber, it will collect this white kind of haze. I don't really know what to call it. I just know that it does not look sanitary. It's unwanted. I don't want it there. It doesn't look perfect, and I know I can clean it off. But that, because of experience, I know that I can easily do that when I'm cleaning the rest of this panel. So let me get back to the traditional cleaning now that I've kicked away all the loose material. Now let me explain that most of my cleaning will be accomplished with these two types of tools. Nylon scrub brush, it's what you would call very aggressive, as in these are pretty stiff and they're actually pretty thick bristles. And many of you, if you're a beginner or a car owner, you'd be like, that just seems awfully scary, Darren. I don't know about that. Well, then switch to something else like this. Just know that there's going to be a trade-off with everything. So this will prove, like, actually, because the dirt's just not that excessive on this, this would prove very effective. But I know through experience that this is completely safe, assuming I'm not going to be stupid about it, which this is not going to be a stupid moment. All I'm saying is that for the bulk of the areas, which most of these areas are pretty exposed, I'm going to just say 80% of these areas are pretty exposed. That's why I'm going to keep the large tools. This is for the heavy lifting. And it's always the same process. Apply, scrub, wipe, and check results. That straightforward. Now, I don't know if it's showing up, but what I did, and now I can tell for certain, I speculated that yes, there's probably dressing on this. Now I've confirmed yes, there was dressing on this, because now I have what I would call a more original appearance. There's no shine whatsoever. There's not even a subtle sheen as compared to down here. It also feels better because in my head, I like the shinier it gets through the application of a dressing or a conditioner, the more cheesier or cheap it makes the material look. I don't think that's wanted, not in my eyes anyways. So when I look at this, it's like, oh, that's better. Now I know I can improve it, which I'll show you at the end, but it certainly feels better because I feel no type of greasiness in the form of a dressing. I don't like that feel because often those dressings don't really come off very easily. And it is kind of a mental thing where I equate, and I know a lot of you out there watching this have the same opinion, where it's like, ooh, dressing, it's like, it's just kind of slimy and sloppy, and I think of dust sticking to it, and then I'm gonna rub it or wipe it or use it. It's like, oh, it's just gross. But once again, that's me. Now you don't have to spray directly. Often this is about more control. I'll just spray the pad, and this allows me to manage my product a little easier. Now, I don't overthink folding the cloth. It looks very unprofessional, unrefined here on camera by not having it all nicely folded like this, which, okay, go for that. That will make you more efficient. Well, let's call that more economical, because now you can manage the dirt as it accumulates on your cloth. So if you fold it twice, which is my rule, I know that I'm going to 8 equal sides of mopping up dirty cleaning solution. So it does serve its purpose if you're willing to do it. So back to this. Now something with a scrub brush like this is, if the texture is so deep and heavy, this is limited on its ability to get down into the valleys of the texture. Now this is proving to be perfect, the winning balance. Now if the texture was more extreme, I might have to switch to a brush because the bristles can actually fit into the valleys better than this pad. And then now we got a little vent up here. It's like, okay, let me see what that's going to require. I really don't like getting liquids into this because, well, liquids will cause the material to look different in the moment. And if I can finesse it or dry, then I much prefer that. It will save time. And then also, like occasionally, I don't necessarily bend up and down every time for my brushes. Like when I'm done using this in the moment, I just throw it in there. This, I'm gonna slide it in my back pocket. This, I keep in my hand. So this, I'll generally put it in my pocket like that, and then take it on and off like that. Once again, efficiency. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm going to take a little corner of this, and I'm going to finesse this side mirror control knob. Now something on this is it has white markings. Those white markings, I will show you very quickly. Those are intended to stay there for a lifetime. The problem is with mass-produced cars, and based on the manufacturer, they're not all created equally, which means, or translates into you might have a chemical, and let me talk about the chemical. This is Fabric Clean. It's an upholstery shampoo. It's not really labeled to be working on this. I know it's completely suitable for it because this makes me more efficient, more economical, because I can use one product to clean everything rather than reaching for 3 different products based on the material and having to juggle 3 different types of products. Point is this, like for example, would be more aggressive than a dedicated leather cleaner. This isn't leather, I understand that, What I'm getting at is that these markings, like these markings, I can tell they're not really quality markings. So if this chemical was strong enough, it might wear off these markings while I'm cleaning it. It's not doing that, but that's where you need to be aware that it could do that, which is why if you're a beginner, you need to do a certain amount of testing of your products prior to using them. And every car manufacturer, every car itself will be unique and different. Now I've got this soft, smooth, not soft, I take that back. It's not soft at all. It's hard, it's rigid, but it's smooth. There's zero texture on this little plate that houses these window controls and the window locks. So I don't need to be aggressive. I'm just going to shower my cloth with a little bit of cleaner, and I'm just going to do it by hand. I'm going to get down into the valleys, and literally anything can become a tool. Even you can become a tool. Even I can become a tool. And sometimes I am occasionally. Hopefully today's not one of those days. So the point is I just configure this into this nice little wedge, and now I've got me a nice, soft, safe little tool, and I can get all that little grease marks in there. And remember, when buttons move, you need to move them and verify that there's not some dirt trap beneath there. So when Johnny customer gets in here after you've detailed it and you insisted that everything's perfect, even though perfect doesn't exist, and they move a button and they're like, oh wow, there's still dirt underneath there. That darn detailer didn't get the dirt under there. So you need to move things like this, move it, and expose the dirt that's lying await to trap you. It's like a little time bomb that's going to go off when you're not around, after you've already left. You don't want that. See that? And that? These are the door locks. Which, speaking of door locks, one of Darren's iron rules, never ever, 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 ever leave the car keys inside the car while you're working. You say, oh, I would never lock the keys in there. It's like, just don't do it. Trust me on that one. Pick a designated area outside of the car somewhere and always put the keys there. Now we've got some more buttons. This looks like it's the control for the seats, the memory for the seat adjustments. It has electric seats. So I'm going to take my little rag. Yep, I just pushed it. Now the seat's moving behind me. I just confirmed what I call the obvious. I'm going to go in here and get these seams here. And look how simple this really is. You know, there's not a bunch of accumulated dirt. I don't need to bust out a special, that's my neighbor across the street. Hi, Sydney. If you happen to tune in and watch this video, you can see me say hi. And now I'm going to get rid of this white residue. And this takes a little bit of effort because you gotta, I don't know, rubber and this cloth, they don't necessarily slide very easily. So, and it's such a smooth material that if I took a regular brush like this, it's gonna leave individual bristle marks on it. I don't want that. I want it to clean it in a very precise, uniform fashion. And when I say uniform, I'm talking about my results will be completely uniform when I'm done. So I'm just gonna sit here and finesse this with my finger. And this is literally what I do. And the reason I'm doing this is because my experience has shown me that this seems to be the most efficient way to produce the desired results I want. Now, someone out there may say, oh, well, if you had a steamer, you could just blast it with a steamer. It's like, well, I could shoot holes in that argument all day long. So right now, and I'm going to verify, and don't underestimate, this is a little another learning moment. See how I'm really starting to produce the sweat? Is don't underestimate the power of perspective. For example, most guys will be like, oh yeah, da 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 da, I'm cleaning. But then when you crouch way down and you say like, oh, suddenly I can see up underneath here where the fingers go up underneath there. But from this perspective, you don't know that. So in this moment, I'm going to lift this up and I'm going to verify. And I promise you, at least not in my 35 years of experience, have I ever had a customer crouch down, because honestly, most of them physically can't. They'll kind of bend over, but they're not going to crouch down. They literally don't even have the strength in their legs to crouch down like that and do that kind of examination. But this is just my own personal standard. It's like if I'm committed to detailing a car, I'm not going to be stupid about it and over deliver to the point of being absurd and losing all my profit. But yes, I'm going to raise it so that it exceeds their expectations, not to the point, once again, where it's going to be stupid and I've lost all profitability, but my standards are such that it's like, yeah, I'm absolutely going to exceed their expectations. That's my working goal. So now I'm really making some headway here, even though it's taking me probably twice as long to demonstrate it to you guys. Now, one thing you need to be very mindful of is you can't clean damage away. And sometimes you really don't know if you're looking at damage or you're looking at a material that's still clean. It really is difficult at times. Most of the time it's very obvious, but there's sometimes it's like, man, I can't tell if that's dirt, because this, honestly, it's a Ford Flex. Despite how much these probably cost at the time, I don't know if I think I announced it, it's a 2016. It's not like they're cheap, but trust me, there's plenty of cheap going on as far as the materials they use. It really is just mass-produced cheap stuff. And the cheaper it is, the less durable it is, the less, it just doesn't clean up as easily and as nicely because it's cheap materials. So if this was a Mercedes, which I'm a big fan of because they use higher quality materials, just like every other higher end manufacturer, Porsche, Land Rover, Jaguar, BMW. Actually, I do love BMWs, but I'm not a huge fan of their particular material choice. But that's me speaking as a detailer. Now what's interesting here is that is whitening up as I scrub it, and this is exactly what I was talking about. What's going on here? Well, based on my experience, I have a feeling I know what's going on, is because they applied dressing right over the dirt, which is very normal for cheap detailers and car washes. It trapped that dirt, and the dressing literally dresses the dirt, which means it conceals the dirt. So now that I've cleaned the dressing off, it has revealed that there was dirt in the form of like makeup or something underneath, which means now I need to go back in and really clean this more thoroughly. And that would be my hypothesis for why that in a very quickly changed color, even though I was cleaning it. Because if I were to keep cleaning this, and I'll take it to a lower level or a higher level, however you want to hierarchy that, is if I kept cleaning this, it will actually continue to dry out that plastic. So once again, at the very end, I will show you what I do with this to bring the finished product to like 1 to 2 higher levels of perfection. And now that I'm down here looking at the perspective, I can see that up underneath there's some just, I don't know, schmang trapped. So I'm going to get my corner that's got some cleaner on it, and I'm going to wedge it up in there, and it looks like it's sufficient, but I'm going to take my dry brush and finish that out. And this is typically what I do as I'm inspecting it, thinking like, yeah, the shampooing might be done. Now I'm going to kick away any dust, because as you work, you're going to actually create this thing called static electricity. And so dust naturally will cling to the surface. And so I want to knock it away so I can really scrutinize my results. See, already I've gone away from the folded method because I'm really focused on being more efficient, as in cutting to the chase rather than organizing or managing my cloth into submission. That's less of an importance right now. Up here I still see a little dressing residue. Gonna knock that down. Got this little plastic thing. It's interesting when you start really developing your eye, you can become so hyper focused on an area that something sitting right there next to it will remain completely obscured from your perspective. And then you pull back, you're like, wow, why didn't I clean that when I was cleaning this? Well, that's just a strange phenomenon. It's a byproduct of becoming hyper focused on what you're actually focused on. So there we have, and I'm going to call this 90, let's go with 96% perfect, with the understanding that perfection does not exist. Because what I'm going to show you, and many of you, like, okay, let me just call this out. 99% of my customers would call that perfect. They wouldn't overthink it. They'd come out and go, oh my gosh, Darren, that looks great. Very anticlimactic, but it looks great. I've exceeded their expectations because I'm scrutinizing it, and actually I'm scrutinizing my own work. And now that I have a different perspective over here looking versus over there looking, I can see right down in this little meetup point that it is not as perfect as I need it to be. So now it becomes a challenge. How is Darren going to clean that? It's pretty tight. There's probably only about a, I don't know, 1/64th of an inch, like less than I don't know metric very well. It's so funny how the US of A is still on the old school standard measuring system. Like, why did we not embrace the metric system 100 years ago? I do not understand. And now I'm using my fingernail as a tool, which, damn, that's hot. And I do have actually tools that replicate my fingernail, but they're metal, and you really have to be very cautious. So this moment, because I can get it with my fingernail, and my fingernail is not metal, so my fingernail will break or give out in a lot of cases, not every case, but a lot of cases it will give out before the material gets damaged. You still have to use it with caution, because one wrong swipe with your fingernail on the wrong material, and you're kind of screwed in a bad way. We don't want to be screwed in a bad way. I don't know if it's showing, but see how it's uneven in finish? Not a big deal, because I have cleaned this whole area. It literally could be my sweat as I brush up against it. So now, okay, if it was 96% before, now that I just detailed that area out, I'm going to call this 97%. But Darren asks, can we raise the bar? And I say, yes, we can. How do we do that? Well, this is how Darren does it. It's called an aerosol dressing. I've literally used this for 20 years. I was introduced to this by my distributor that I used to buy all my, professional grade detailing products off of. And it's like, oh my gosh, this stuff is magical. Now, the reason you want, or you might want an aerosol, is because this can spray dressing in little nuanced areas that you're not going to be able to get an application sponge or whatever onto. So this is where I will raise the bar, and it will be kind of a contradiction, as in, like, Darren, you always disparage dressings and conditioners. You say you don't need them. Well, this isn't about needing. Like, this material, as a rule, aside from this little area right here, that does look a little dried out. It doesn't actually need it. What it needs to be is cleaned consistently, because dirt is its biggest enemy. Dirt in its endless forms. Lotions, body oils, just normal dust, food, whatever. But what I'm talking about is want. I want this to look better. I know what I can do with this, so I'm going to do it. And that is just a light spray. Now you don't have to go crazy because you see how shiny it is, which I already disparaged at the beginning. I don't like shine like that. What I'm really after is making this materials, because it is plural, can I make them look a little healthier while still retaining a virtually stock appearance? So now that I think I've got good coverage, now I'm going to come back in and I'm going to knock this down. Knock this shine down, baby. So what I'm doing is I'm working it in, and you will see if you do use an aerosol dressing that it does not respond to every material the same. Like everything else in life, it responds differently. Like your cleaners will, the sun will, everything really is different and unique. Just like you as a person, you unique little special snowflake you. See, there I just went into that voice tone that Darren is kind of iconic for. Makes you wonder, guy's got a lot of pent up energy he needs to release. And that I do. Okay, so now this is me finessing it because I don't want any like standing dressing. I don't want any hyper shine. So I'm really knocking it down. I'm touching basically everything. And this panel is requiring a little finessing on my part, unlike these other materials. So you can actually be based on the material, which once again, this is part of my discussion. Not all materials are created equally. So I can rub this to the point where then I create an inconsistent appearance, which is exactly what I was trying to create. So it's like, oh, now I know there's some materials I can't rub too hard on. Some materials require more rubbing on. So I just reapply. Bam. Now I finesse it with lighter pressure until I have achieved a truly uniform appearance. And I'm going to examine my work. And it's like, yeah, I like what I see. And let me bring you in. Now, I'm not really gonna spend a bunch of time with my editing skills trying to edit a side-by-side comparison on this. Okay, what I'm seeing these vents, it's less than perfect. Right at the bottom, there's still some schmang where the dressing didn't get to. Because I know it's not a bunch of dirt, I will just take this little, and this kind of is an eye shot view, so I will spend the time to finesse this area. Now if this was lower on the door panel, I probably wouldn't, because I know it's not a bunch of dirt that's stuck in there. It's probably a combination of a very subtle degree of dust that's clinging to life in the lower half of those vents, and the combination of the dressing. So there, I don't know, what did that take me, about 22.5 seconds? And now I finessed it to a higher level perfection. I'm still gonna call that only like 96 perfect, but in the context of this moment, I'm gonna call that sufficient. Let's see what other areas. The armrest, the header, the window controls. Let me capture some sunlight. See how nice those look underneath. Everything is dialed in. Oh, check that out, see? I forgot to push these forward. So now, I'm gonna come in and finesse that, because what happened is I dressed it when these were not engaged, and now when you engage them, it's gonna reveal a less than uniform appearance, and I don't want that. So there we go. See, this is where inspection comes in. And you got to remember perspective. So you got to look at, one of my tricks is you pull away from what I would call Oh, you can see my setup. So for example, this is Johnny customer coming out like, oh, let's come out and check out my car. Boom, I'm rocking back and forth because you can't see me. So the point is what they observe from this distance will be vastly different from what they observe as they start walking up to their car, because as they are from this distance, they're already going to be scrutinizing your work. For example, see how the lower half of that door underneath the door panel, which is the white door jamb area, see how exposed that is from this angle or this distance as compared to right here? Now it's hardly visible. And that's why perspective matters. Okay, you know, at 92 degrees and 48% humidity, this is completely tolerable. Like, I'm not that wet. Normally, this whole upper half would be completely drenched. Yes, I'm all wet up here and all wet famunda, but whatever. So, in closing, if you've tuned into my channel for any length of time, I'm hoping that I displayed a different side of Darren, the more softer side of Darren, the happier version, because I really do love detailing. I love nailing the details. And once again, this is me in my environment. I love the sun, I love the outdoors, I love working my hands. And if I wasn't talking to you guys and bringing you along for the ride, I would be listening to my music and really zenning out. And that is the winning combination in my world. So this is me adopting the happy detailer versus the cynical, frustrated detailer that gets so frustrated at the industry or gets so frustrated at those keyboard jockeys that chime in and drop some like exaggeration or something that I can tell is not from experience. And then it just confuses the rest of you guys. And then it's like, oh, do I weigh in on that or do I just let it go? You know, because really when it comes down to it, I'm trying to deliver the information and the skills and knowledge that I wish I had when I was a beginner, before I knew what I know now. It's as simple as that. But that requires a certain amount of patience on your part to take the time to listen and absorb, and then re-engage again and absorb a little bit more. Okay. Don't forget to give it a like on the way out. And if you got a comment, by all means, I would love to hear what your comment is. I don't care. You can comment about anything. I really don't care. And what I mean by that is I care, but it's not going to offend me. How about I clarify it that way? And I will see you in the next video.